Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and I filled Dave's spaceship with Taco Bell and Starbucks. So for the next 3 hours, we're all going to have stomach aches and the shakes. But I promise, by the end of the show, you'll be used to it. We welcome to tonight's show, Kingdom of Night Radio and Revolution Radio. If you'd like to listen to our archives, they are always free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our brand new website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora. You know what? No, it's a new website. I'm bringing in a new word. We have a cornucopia of features for you. Not only can you rock out to some Bumblefoot, you can check out the SOR Vault. And I think Dave expects me to hide the Les Pauls there, but that's not going to happen. Instead, you can go to the vault and you can find all kinds of cool swag. You can go over to the new Space Travelers Club, hang out in there for $5 a month. There are so many cool things on the website. I'm still exploring it and having a lot of fun. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Please head on over to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, chivecharities.org, as we try to help make this world 10% better. Tonight, I'm really excited because we have Rob Shelsky here. And Rob, I've had the opportunity to talk behind the scenes a little bit to Rob, and he is an incredible guy. He's fascinating. Dave's had him as a guest, and I'm really excited to get to talk on air with him because Rob is a researcher, author, and a really in-demand speaker covering everything from UFOs, time travel, even the Mandela effect, and some other stuff. He's a prolific writer, working to write about 4,000 words a day. And not content just to make us question our own reality, he's brought some of his research into the fiction world, writing science fiction, horror, and paranormal stories that are really good. His most recent nonfiction book, Shattered Reality, The Mandela Effect, has turned heads and brought a frighteningly large amount of logic to an idea as confusing as it is fascinating. You're going to want to keep an eye out on Facebook, Rob's website, and Amazon, and pick up some of his stuff. Rob, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here and be able to talk to you about some of this stuff. I know that you talked with Dave a while back about the Mandela effect, and I want to get into that, but the last time you and I talked, we didn't really get to even scratch the surface of your work, and I want to dig into some of that.
And exactly which part of my work is it you want to dig into?
Oh, pretty much all of it. You've written quite a bit on the moon, and you know, with Halloween kind of approaching here, it's a good time to talk about the moon. And I mean, you've written several books on the moon. And
yeah, you have.
I'd kind of like to dig into some of your ideas and theories, because one of the things that you talk about is that the moon was brought here.
Yeah, that is a theory. It's not my original theory. It belongs to two other scientists of the Soviet Academy who came up with the idea in the 1970s. They call it the spaceship moon theory. And I just sort of expanded upon it and tried to find more convincing evidence to back it up. And I kind of did, actually.
Now, how are people supposed to accept the idea that it was brought here or moved here?
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone should accept any idea unless they have enough evidence that convinces them. I am sort of a kick-the-tires of the UFO kind of guy. I like to see hard evidence to support things. There is considerable evidence that the moon is extremely odd. One scientist said quite famously that it's easier to explain the non-existence of our moon than to explain it being there. And other scientists have echoed this. There's a lot wrong with our moon, according to all our current theories about it. None of our theories of the creation of the moon work, for instance. And there are so many oddities about it that you almost have to kind of conclude that the moon's origin may be a little stranger than we realize.
So the idea that it was something that was kind of bumped through space and it floated through our orbit or our air, like our wherever the Earth was at the time, and was kind of caught in the Earth's gravitational pull and just began orbiting? That's maybe not the case.
No. In fact, that theory has been largely disproven a long time ago. The idea that the moon was captured, the capture theory, just simply never held water, and that's why other theories have followed. The moon simply could not have come into an orbit around the Earth as we see the theory. It's simply not possible. The moon's speed on its approach would not have allowed it to have been captured by the Earth. More likely, the Earth and the moon, one of the two, would have been shot out of the solar system entirely as a rogue planet. Secondly, in order for it to move into the orbit it has, it would have had to have had a Earth that had a much more extensive atmosphere that would have acted as a braking mechanism for it. That simply didn't happen. We have no evidence that we had a much thicker and higher atmosphere than we do now. So the capture moon theory is just out, and other theories have followed suit. Charles Darwin's theory that the moon came from the Pacific Basin, and that's why we have such a large ocean there, also doesn't work because the rocks on the moon, are much older than the rocks in the basin of the Pacific Ocean. So that doesn't work. Our current theory that most people like is the impact theory, and the impact theory says that a planet the size of Mars called Theia impacted the Earth, and they basically smashed together. A great deal of debris was thrown into space, formed a ring around the Earth, and within less than 100 years formed the moon. Problems with that theory abound as well, so two other scientists came up with the idea of a georeactor theory, where there's a great deal of radioactive material right at the Earth's equator. How lucky. And it just blew out into space one day. But there's a lot of problems with that theory, too. In fact, all the current theories we have major problems with them. They don't account for all the strange oddities about our moon. It's rife with oddities. So the two Soviet scientists decided that, Vassin and Sherbakov, decided that it was more likely that the moon was deliberately placed into orbit around Earth carefully, not just gliding by. Excuse me. And this resulted in the moon now becoming what it is and where it is today. And my feeling is this happened sometime around 12,000 years ago based on the evidence I've gathered. Now, is it conclusive? No, it's not. It's circumstantial. But there seems to be a lot of evidence to presuppose that the moon might have actually been moved into our orbit.
If it was moved into our orbit, when we look at the moon, should we look at it as one big giant planet-like rock, or is there more to it? Was it built or constructed in some way and then brought here?
Some think it was constructed. From the evidence I've gathered, it looks more like they took a natural body, which may have already been in orbit around the Earth at a greater distance, and they basically terraformed it by hollowing it out to make it suitable for themselves. Now, the idea of the moon being hollow is a strange one, I admit, but we do have considerable evidence to back this up. The moon has, again, these odd features. For one thing, its density isn't high enough. If it's made of the same material as the mantle of the Earth, its density should be the same. It's not. It's considerably lighter. In fact, it's so light that the old joke about the moon being made of green cheese would almost apply as far as density goes. The far side of the moon has a thicker crust than the near side. The near side has maria, those vast lava fields, which the far side does not have. The large craters on the moon are very shallow. The small craters are very deep. This is directly contrary to what it should be. The top three layers of soil on the moon are reversed. One with the highest density is on top, and the one with the lowest density is the third layer down. We know it because we've drilled this on the moon with our astronauts. And this goes on and on, all these strange oddities about our moon. It just doesn't seem to be a natural object.
Well, what about the idea that the moon was instrumental or a big part of evolution, the development of life on this planet? If it only showed up about 12,000 years ago, what does it do to that theory?
Well, that theory isn't necessarily wrong either. If the moon did exist in orbit, but in a different orbit until it was resituated, that would account for the tides. Also, we do have tides without the moon. We have solar tides, and we have Coriolis effect tides. So it's not as if the Earth didn't have tides with or without a moon. So Yes. Animals, certain creatures have become acclimated to the cycles of the moon. Some would even argue human beings are, with the woman's menstruation period almost matching that of the length of a moon, or a month, 1 month. So there's a lot of people who argue that this is how it had to have been. Yet we also have a good deal of evidence that says the moon wasn't always here, including in recorded history.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The Greeks refer to a race of people who existed in the land of Greece, the peninsula, before the modern Greeks came there, and they referred to them as proselynes, literally meaning before the moon, the people who lived in Greece before the moon. In the New World, we have various indigenous tribes in Central, South, and North America that speak of a time before there was a moon. This is how they preface their legends and stories. Back in the time before there was a moon. Now, they don't say before there was a Mars or a Venus or a Jupiter or Saturn or even the sun. They say before the moon, consistently. The Romans also talked of a time before the moon. So this is a worldwide recorded history phenomena. On top of that, we don't have a lot of evidence for the moon existing in early days from caveman pictures or drawings. You have depictions of the moon that date back so many centuries, and then prior to that, there seems to be nothing. Yet the moon is clear in our night sky. You would have thought someone would have drawn it. The only evidence we have at all, and this is rather fleeting evidence at best, is one cave painting drawing showing a little small, thin crescent. Now, that could be the moon, or it could be a phase of a planet, including Venus. So, and that's the only evidence we have from that period of anyone depicting or drawing the moon, yet they drew other things. The Mayans, for instance, were very big on Venus. Their whole culture revolved around it, not around the moon. Why is this? It's the largest and biggest object and brightest object in the night sky. But it's like civilization just sort of skipped it by and focused on Venus or Mars, but not the moon. Again, this is very odd.
It is, and hearing you say this stuff, it makes me look at it a little bit differently. So I'm going to ask this. If the moon were placed here, who placed it here?
Oh, that's the big question. Obviously, it probably wasn't us, unless we have racial amnesia, and there was once a civilization that we had that was capable of doing that. It would be interesting if we found the remains of human beings on the moon from ancient times. We haven't. Not yet, anyway. So it has to be somebody else. And I don't think it's someone from another dimension, because this is quite physical, quite real, and it's in our universe, so to speak. So it has to be extraterrestrials of some type. And again, we have some recorded history that talks about just this sort of thing. We have the Vedic texts of India, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata codexes, or codices, speak of ancient aliens or gods, over 400 different species of them, of a great war on Earth, of a human revolt at the time, and of this war being fought not only on Earth but in space and even on the surface of the moon. And they're not the only ones. The Sumerian texts refer to the Anunnaki, and they refer to an overlord sort of race that weren't native to the earth and that were here at the time, and apparently there was a great rebellion according to the cuneiform writings of the Sumerians. So two distinct cultures existing at different times both speak of great events happening in our past that involve extraterrestrials.
You know, that's one thing that really intrigues me when you look at a lot of these different stories and legends, and it doesn't just revolve around the moon. It revolves around so many other things where there are parallels across the world in civilizations that didn't have any communication with or knowledge of each other. And there are these parallels that you just almost have a hard time explaining.
Well, that's true. I mean, how else do you explain it if these were all isolated civilizations, some existing at different times in history, so they couldn't be in contact with each other? Then how do we explain all these similar stories about a time before the moon and about extraterrestrials or aliens or gods, whatever you want to call them, being on Earth and in control of us? For instance, the Sumerian texts refer to a race, the Anunnaki, who were basically considered gods and had their own palaces and temples. Moreover, they didn't seem to like to go out on the surface of the Earth. So if they're from another planet, maybe it just wasn't comfortable. The atmosphere, the density, the ratio of oxygen, the gravity, who knows? But they claim to have had human servants that served them, like an upper higher class of priesthood, who literally served them, their food and all that type of thing. And to this day, we have temples and churches for our god or gods, and we have priesthoods that serve them. Unfortunately, our temples and palaces of today seem to be absent their owners, but still we carry on the tradition. So if this is so, if the Anunnaki did create a subservient race and it did rebel against them, that would explain a heck of a lot.
It would. So let me ask you this. If the moon were brought here, why was it brought here?
Well, there's a lot of suppositions with regard to that. Carl Sagan spoke about the possibility of moving an asteroid, one of the heavy metal ones, into orbit around Earth. This would be at a considerable expense. However, the metals on an average-sized such asteroid would be the equivalent of $9 trillion in value. That's the entire GDP output of the Earth for one solid year, every country on Earth combined. So this would be fantastic. And when you were done with it, you'd have a hollow asteroid, which Carl Sagan then said would make for one heck of a space station. It'd have a heavy metal exterior. There'd be no problems with radiation. You could pack up to 50,000 people inside of one of these things. And if you had a closed environment, it could last for millennia or more. And there's no reason to think that other more advanced races might not have already done this. Who knows? Maybe an advanced race from long ago decided to set sail on the cosmic sea. And there's a reason why they might. There might have been other species that were inimical to them, malevolent, dangerous. So what do? Well, you escape into deep space, where there are literally billions of rogue planets. You're in a completely enclosed environment that leaks no radiation or television or radio waves of any sort, so you can't be found, nor heat radiation, and you can travel safely for millennia or more. And eventually, sooner or later, you might have to come into a solar system and basically warm yourselves by the fire of the sun, get more resources from whatever planets or asteroids are in that solar system, stock up, and whatever. And it is odd that the only other moon that might be hollow in our entire solar system orbits a planet that we think might have once held life. In fact, the evidence is growing in that direction, and that planet is Mars, and the moon is Phobos. It has the same problem. Its density is too low for its size. Its orbit is extremely strange. In fact, it's due to crash into Mars. The date that when it will do this differs, but it's always in a few million years or so. And you have to stop and think that why would two planets, one that has life, one that might have had life, both might have moons that are hollow? And we have seen some strange things around Phobos, too. And that includes the Russian two probes that were sent there early on in the 20th century, or latter half of it. And they took a photo of something that looked like a cylinder very close to Phobos, and then that probe was destroyed. They don't know how or why. And the probe that followed it immediately also was destroyed. And that was the end of that.
So is it possible that there is life inside Phobos and our moon at the same time? Presently?
Well, I don't know if there's life in either one of them right now, but, and again, this is strictly circumstantial evidence, because we haven't gone to either place to actually ascertain this. Yeah, we've been to the moon, but we didn't really try to get inside the moon. We haven't even been to the far side except with one Chinese rover, and that's about it, and it's only traveled a short ways. So we don't really know enough about it at all, one way or the other, but it does seem odd that two odd moons should both circle planets that have life, or one that has life and one that, again, quite probably had life at one time. What were they doing here? Who knows? Who knows an alien mind? It might be so strange to us that we can't even follow its thought processes. We can't even figure out the language of a dolphin, for instance. We know octopi and squids are quite bright and intelligent, even using tools in the case of an octopus, but we can't talk to them. We can't communicate with them because they just don't think the way we do.
Do you think then that our not returning manned missions to the moon anyway relates to possibly something or somebody being on the moon?
The idea of us being warned off the moon, it's a real possibility. Why haven't we been back? It's been a long, long time, decades. And our technology now is far superior to what it was back in 1969 when we landed Apollo 11 on the moon. The calculators of today, the average person's calculator and phone, have more computing power than the original Apollo 11 ship had, the command module. So why haven't we been back? It should be much easier now than it was then. But we haven't been, not in person and not any other country either. The Soviet Union was really hot to land someone on the moon. They didn't do it either. They never landed a man on the moon. So maybe we will in the near future, and the idea of it being us being warned off might just dissipate. But until that happens, one has to consider it a real possibility.
That's an interesting idea and an interesting question. Do you think, with just a few seconds left, do you think the idea of a space force being formed has anything to do with returning to the moon and providing defense or something like that?
Yes, it is possible. Is there a space force? I don't know. The evidence for it's very slim. But we did have the technology to create such a space force back in the late 50s with the Orion. It would have been powered by nuclear bombs and would have been able to travel in just a few weeks to Mars, for instance. So we've had that technology capability for a long, long time.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to get you to hold that thought for just a second, and we are going to step out for a second on Spaced Out Sundays. We'll be right back.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. We live in a world of mystery and uncertainty, which you guys know better than anyone. Sometimes you just need to be brought back down to earth for a while. One of the best ways to stay grounded is to help out with your fellow earthlings, and there's no more rewarding way to do that than to give through CHIVE Charities. Unlike many organizations, we don't necessarily aim to save the world, cure disease, or change the course of history. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. CHIVE Charities is nothing without our donors, an amazing group of underdogs helping underdogs. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio. Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thanks for sticking around with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the brand new Vault, joining the Space Travelers Club, and so much more. We're joined tonight by Rob Shelsky, and before the break, we touched upon the secret space program a little bit. And around here, you can't mention the secret space program without asking some questions. So, Rob, in your research, what have you found out about the secret space program?
Well, there's very little that's concrete. Gary McKinnon supposedly hacked into, I believe, something like 97 different departments of the U.S. government and or related computers, and he was a citizen of England, and he says that he found evidence for a fleet of secret spaceships, and these included a list of officers on board those ships, and they were referred to as non-terrestrial officers. Well, terrestrial means Earth. So if they're non-terrestrial, that means they have to be from space. It also had a list of names of the various ships, again, according to him. Now, the problem here is that Gary McKinnon did have a few mental problems. I believe he was considered to be autistic, and so the English government refused to let him to be extradited to the United States. But it's interesting that he came up with this because others have talked about secret space forces as well, and some people even believe some of the NASA photographs involving the sun and other things show these massive ships out there. And our ships would be massive. If they were based on the Orion model of the late 1950s that the government proposed making and supposedly didn't make simply because of the pollution of radiation in our atmosphere when they launched, would mean massive ships of a very great size. And the end result would be you have these massive ships powered by nuclear bombs, basically small ones, exploding in the rear of the ship to propel it forward, moving at incredible speeds around our solar system. So if we do have such a secret space force, it isn't for conquering the Earth because we haven't used it for that. And if we had that kind of technology, one would think there would be a temptation to try to, control the Earth and at least make people do what we want them to do. But that hasn't happened. So what are they doing out there? Whatever they're doing out there, it has nothing to do with us here on Earth, apparently. So who are they going after? Who are they defending us from?
How do you respond to the idea or the question that if it took, 300,000 to 400,000 people just to work on the projects of getting us to the moon, how many people would it take to do this, and how would that be hidden?
Well, it's amazing what can be hidden if you have enough money. There is Area 51. There are the black projects. Billions upon billions upon billions have been funneled into those. So the monies could be there very easily. So could the location to build these things. And things could be launched into orbit. There's constant launches into orbit of secret military things that we're not aware of. There's even that mini space shuttle the military has that was up in orbit for over a year. This thing has no pilot. It's automated and it's small, but not really small, just small compared to the original space shuttles. What was it doing up there all that time? Why would you need something like that up there? So, again, feasibility-wise, yes, we could have had the money to do it. We could have had the place to do it, and the number of people required to do such a thing wouldn't be nearly as big as it used to be back in the 60s. We were short on technology, big on labor back then. Now, we have the labor. I mean, Elon Musk is making a spaceship that'll get us to Mars. And if he can do it as a private person, surely our government's capable of doing the same thing and on a larger scale.
But based on the descriptions that we've heard of some of these ships and their sizes, wouldn't they have almost had to have been constructed outside the atmosphere? They were too big to, quote unquote, launch up into space. They would have almost had to have been built up into space.
No. Well, it depends. If you're talking about the ones that people see in photographs of NASA, like these things around our sun, yes, they're absolutely incredibly massive. I don't think those are ours. I don't think we're capable of that. It just would be an incredible feat of construction. But it would be perfectly feasible to launch an atomic-powered ship from the surface of the Earth. We probably wouldn't do that. I would imagine it would have been assembled in space, and therefore that might account for all the secret launches of things going up there. Or it could be that launches are being conducted that we're not aware of. Now, could they get away with this? That's a big question, because other countries would be watching any launches and would certainly be aware of something going on, and this would be a fairly big feat. So does the Space Force exist? It's questionable. Could it? Yes, theoretically, it could definitely exist. Is it probable that it exists? I'm not sure about being probable. It's definitely possible. It's within the realm of our technological means to do this. Have we done it? That's the big question.
You mentioned atomic-powered ships and launching them into space. Are you saying that there would be nuclear-powered spacecraft launched in our atmosphere and out of our atmosphere?
That was what they theorized that we could do back in 1957, and we had the technological means back then to do it. Would we do it? Another question, because again, you have the problem of radiation in the atmosphere and other countries being able to use sensors to find it and begin to question what we're doing very quickly. So, as you stated, it probably is more likely that we launched the various portions or parts of the ship into near-Earth orbit and assembled them there. Now, that's a little tougher for us to do. It'd be actually much easier for us to launch them from the ground than it would be to try to assemble them in space, because assembling things in space is far more difficult, as we've learned with the space station.
That makes sense. We can't talk about the secret space program without talking about Mars a little bit and the potential for not only life on Mars, but the potential for human life on Mars or alien life on Mars.
Well, that's true. And also there are people who say that they were in the Space Force and that they've been on Mars and were stationed on Mars and actually fought battles against aliens on Mars. Now, is this science fiction? Could well be. Or is it the truth? Well, it falls in line with everything that we've heard so far about the Space Force. If we built one, and we built it like people say they might have built it, then it's for a purpose, a real reason. You wouldn't have a deep space force unless there was something you needed it for. And if it could get to Mars in a matter of 3 weeks or so, really days if you think about it in that respect, then we would be capable of bringing stuff to the moon, to Mars and or Phobos, and of establishing bases on Mars. So is it feasible? Yes, logically it would be the logical conclusion if, and it's a big if, we had a space force.
What do you think of the idea that the moon is a jump station for people to go to Mars?
Well, you would have to see, unless they were using the far side of the moon, and that's getting even harder to do now because we do have satellites in orbit, including India, that circle around the moon so they can see both sides. You would have to be able to launch them from the moon without somehow being seen. Now, could they be cloaked? Yes, that's a possibility too. We're getting very good at cloaking things, including stealth bombers and stealth fighters, and we're getting even better. In fact, there's a working invisibility cloak that one Japanese professor has created quite a number of years ago that's almost flawless. So the Harry Potter idea of an invisibility cloak is not far from the truth now, and may already have been done by our military. We spend more on military in this country than the next 10 countries comparable to us, or in a ranking, combined do on an annual basis. We outspend everybody, and not just by a little bit, but by factors, great factors. So where's all this money going? Is it all going for ships and planes and soldiers? We know for a fact it's not, because a heck of a lot of that money is being funneled off into black projects. So could they have a cloaking device for a ship? Yes, they could. In fact, we have evidence in the Earth's atmosphere of people who see things in clouds only by lightning or by night vision goggles when they look up at the night sky, like for triangles, for instance. You don't see them without them, but you see them with them. So it's possible that we could do that.
That's wild. What do you think of the idea, or what are your thoughts on the exploration of Mars sort of being in one small specific area that they're just targeting specifically because there is so much activity in other places on the planet?
Well, that's feasible. Of course, we've had the worst luck, and so has every other country, in getting things to Mars. We have had a much higher failure rate trying to get probes and things to Mars, and so have the Russians, and so have everybody else, including the Indians of India. And then we have getting things to Venus or Jupiter or even Pluto. We have had a higher than 50% failure rate on this. So is something knocking this stuff out? Is something forbidding it, like the idea of the moon being off limits to us? Who knows? How else do we account for this? You would think it'd be much harder to send something to Jupiter, which is farther away, and with this massive radiation belt around it, than it would be, or Saturn with its rings around it and all that debris in the rings, than sending something to little old Mars, which is our next closest planet. So why are we having such trouble with that? And secondly, if we are landing on Mars in only certain areas, as it seems to be, are we trying to pick areas that might not have life or evidence for it? You know, an early probe on Mars did seem to find life, and it was later discounted. But studies more recently have shown that that's not necessarily the case, that the data interpretation was wrong at the time, and that the idea that they might have life is. So also we have that meteorite from Mars. Big news in the 90s under President Clinton. They even announced that they think they found fossils in that chunk of rock. Then later they said, well, we can't really be sure. It could just be some kind of weird crystallization and not really some microscopic type of microbe that was in the fossils. But more recently, much more recently, with much better equipment, scientists have again examined it, and they have found that it does indeed seem to be real fossils. And also with that probe that was sent to the planet back in the 70s, they redid the data on that, and they have found that it showed methane. It showed methane on a seasonal basis and on the diurnal basis of the planet's rotation, and it coincided with the rise and fall of sunset, and this usually implies life, metabolic things that become active in sunlight and slow down in the dark, just as we humans do. So there seems to be a amount of evidence, and it seems to be piling up, that there at least was once life on Mars.
Are you familiar with the story? His name escapes me, but it was a NASA researcher who, when they had that press conference about the piece of rock, he was basically sitting at the table and prepared to say something along the lines of, they had some conclusive evidence that there was life in this rock, or the remnants of life in this rock. And he came out and said that at the last minute, somebody from NASA came to him and kind of told him to not make his statement and pull it back a little bit. Do you remember that incident?
I remember the big announcement. I remember President Clinton also talking about it on camera, on television. I don't remember them saying to pull it back, but I do remember that a number of scientists argued that this could be something besides fossils and that there was no conclusive proof. And that kind of killed the idea of the meteorite being a carrier of fossils for a long time. But again, several scientists much more recently have restudied the data, recrunched the numbers, and they're fairly convinced that it did show life on Mars. In fact, there's one NASA scientist right now who says that he fears for humanity if they find out there is life on other planets, and he specifically talked about that particular probe on Mars and what they've since learned about it. Now, this is a NASA scientist, and his fears are real, and he just came out with this information the last week or two. So, again, there seems to be considerable evidence that there is life on Mars, or was.
Do you think we need to go that far, though, and say fear for humanity? Don't you think that maybe this next generation is a little bit more ready to accept the idea of life somewhere else?
I think, yes. I think the younger people now are much more willing to accept it. I, for one, want, again, to kick the tires. I want hard evidence of it, and I think we're getting very close to that. The idea that everyone in America would panic if there was an absolute hard disclosure on the subject, that doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't think that's true. It might have been back in the 40s or 50s, but not now. I mean, I think right now what we're witnessing is a soft disclosure in progress. The Navy came out and said, yes, those videos that were recently aired on public video channels like YouTube and TV were real, and that they weren't faked, that they weren't hoaxes. Now, this is basically the Navy saying, yeah, those are real images of UFOs, and that's trying to intercept them with our fighters. There's no doubt that something was buzzing the USS Nimitz on the Atlantic coast here, and there is no doubt that they were intercepted. And there's also the one commander out on the Pacific coast who said, now retired, who said point blank, yes, it was something that looked like a giant tic-tac. It had no wings, no airfoils, no visible means of propulsion, left no trail, and it could outmaneuver us and seemed to defy the laws of physics. Now, this is all new stuff, And I'm sure he was under orders that this was classified, just as the Navy said, although this wasn't top secret, the videos, it was classified, sort of, and therefore it shouldn't have been leaked. Now, usually the government is really, really hard on people who disclose classified information and break their oath. I mean, we're talking penitentiary, felony. So the fact that the Navy sort of brushed that whole thing aside, the idea that it was supposed to be classified, is amazing. But it also seems to show that they're doing soft disclosure. You feed people bits of information long enough, and they will come to accept it without all that panic or upset. It just becomes a part of their life. It's almost as if you were feeding them small amounts of poison to make them immune to a larger dose of poison. And that's exactly what has been done throughout history with a lot of rulers of different countries. They would be given poisons in tiny amounts that slowly were increased so that if they did get poison in their food, they wouldn't die from it. And I think that's what the government is sort of doing with this soft disclosure. It's just building on it. You're not going to get aliens exist. They are a danger. Run for your lives. What you're going to get is bit by bit people believing more and more, certainly, that these things exist. The majority of Americans now believe UFOs exist. So if it is soft disclosure, it's working.
You mentioned a little bit ago the failure rate of probes to Mars. And I wanted to ask, isn't there a similar failure rate on things to the moon? Haven't there been some mishaps?
Yes, there is a high failure rate on things to the moon. Not as high as to Mars, but yes, it is high. India had problems. China had problems with one of its rovers. The Russians certainly had problems. We had problems with Apollo 13. Yes, but then again, do remember that a lot of these problems occurred when our technology was less than it is now. So it could be that that's the problem. But with the Mars problems, they seem to be going on regardless of our technology. Things just seem to keep going wrong.
Do you think that is from another race of people or aliens, and do you think that maybe kind of fuels, or whatever's going on with that kind of fuels the idea for this sort of soft disclosure?
Yes, I think it could be. Again, I don't know for sure. These are questions that still need to be answered. What is a fact is that UFOs exist. They absolutely exist. I have no doubt of it. I was a MUFON field investigator. I have investigated UFOs for almost 30 years now. Do UFOs exist? Absolutely. What are they? Where are they from? Who's controlling them? That's what we're trying to find answers to. That's the hard part. But the fact that they exist has been proven. You can go on collecting UFO sightings from here to eternity, and videos and photographs, and some will be hoaxed, and some will be faked, and some will be real. But the evidence is in, and UFOs exist. Even the Navy's admitting it. In fact, their secret program, ATIP, which they also mention as being real, they had $28 million assigned to investigate the aerospace threat of such objects. Now, they didn't say aeronautic, which would mean like aircraft in our atmosphere. They said aerospace. So even in the title of their program, in their threat assessment, they refer to it as aerospace, which is a dead giveaway. And it's meant to be, I think. Whenever the government leaks something out like that, it's usually for a darn good reason.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. Sure, they use the word aerospace, but couldn't it possibly be another country's technology? I mean, we talked a little bit about how much we spend and how much more we spend on military and defense projects, and certainly other countries are doing the same and have their own projects. How likely do you think it is that those videos could be of something just from another country that's invading our airspace?
Well, again, logic would dictate that wouldn't be so. Number one, no other country spends nearly what we spend. Remember, we spend 10 times more annually than the next 10 countries below us combined. That includes China, Russia, France, all of these countries, Great Britain. Put them all together, and they're not spending as much combined. military as we are every single year. So that's incredible, and it's an incredible amount of money, and that money talks. So I don't think it's another country that's more advanced. Secondly, these things seem to defy the laws of physics. They interact with us. They cause damage to property. They cause injuries to people. They cause deaths. And they've done it not just to us, but to the Soviets, to the English, to Australians. So why would their own governments be killing their own people or injuring them? It doesn't make sense. Secondly, none of us seem to have that kind of physics capability. The Navy commander said that he seemed to defy the laws of physics as we know them. So if someone has, and finally, if someone has that kind of technology, they would have conquered us. If Russia had it, don't think they wouldn't use it. If they could stop us and not have to worry about nuclear missiles because they had the technology to bring them down easily, and UFOs seem to have that capability, then why wouldn't they have simply gone after us? It's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese, it's not the French, it's not the English, it's not the Germans. So who is it? And it could be us, but why would we be investigating and spending money on investigating it if it is us?
Just quickly before we go to break, you said that if another country had those kinds of technologies, they would conquer us. Why haven't the aliens conquered us yet?
Big question. They have if they're on the moon, they have the high ground. In any military, general worth his salt will tell you that the best position for any military force is the high ground. They have been here apparently for a long time. What they're doing here is another big question, but from my research, I don't think it's anything good.
Do you have anything to back that up, or is it just a hunch? And I know that your hunches are good.
No, it's not just a hunch. My research has shown overwhelmingly that UFOs and or their occupants seem to be a threat to human beings. They are not our space brothers. And I know there are people out there that are going to be outraged that I said that, but I don't care. They are not our space brothers. Whatever they are, they're not our friends.
Okay, we are going to step out for a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about these UFOs and get into some time travel and maybe some Mandela effect. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
John Resig here, founder of CHIVE Charities. And just like you, we have a penchant for the uncommon, the overlooked, and the off-the-cuff. CHIVE Charities operates a bit differently than most organizations. We listen to our recipients to find out exactly what they need, and then we give it to them. We provide people with rare medical conditions, veterans, and first responders with grant items that will make a direct impact on that person's life. We don't just forget about our recipients when the van or the wheelchair has been delivered, though. Our recipients are part of our CHIVE Charities family for life. By becoming a donor with us, you could be a part of that family too. And our listeners of Spaced Out Radio know that thinking differently can be a very good thing. To get to know some of our recipients and to support Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and start making a real difference today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch, Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the story you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you for being with us. We welcome back everyone listening on our terrestrial affiliates, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. I'll get this right one day. KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our brand new website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio Vault, and reading up on the SOR Newswire, where you can find Dave's weekly blog and so much more. Tonight, we're talking to Rob Shelsky, a fantastic researcher and author who writes both fiction and nonfiction, and he is probably one of the smartest people I know. Right before the break, we were talking secret space program and Mars and aliens and disclosure. So Rob mentioned that he was a MUFON investigator for a while, and Rob has 20 years of investigating UFOs. Just a short period of that time was with MUFON. But with that much experience investigating them, Rob, we have to ask you some questions about them because there is something going on in the sky that a lot of us don't understand.
Yeah, there is something going on in our skies, and I don't think it's a good thing as far as we're concerned. It just, I actually find it frightening.
What makes you say that?
I was waiting for you to ask that. The research has shown overwhelmingly that whatever these UFOs are doing, it's not good for human beings and or our animals, for that matter. They have killed people. They have damaged property. They have injured people. They apparently are abducting people. There's over 1 million people in the United States alone that claim to have been abducted, and that's not even counting worldwide. And then we have the permanently disappeared, which is an incredible number each year. Like the FBI says 60,000, and my figures showed more like 50,000. I was being conservative. But yeah, it's not a good thing that's happening. So again, if people think there are space brothers, they need to think again.
What do you say to the people out there who have had experiences and walk away from these experiences saying that they gained some sort of peace or knowledge out of it, and that the aliens that they met or spoke to or were abducted by, however you want to look at it, were benevolent and wanted to bring peace and things to our planet?
Right, yeah, my response to that would be, show me the money. Show me the evidence for this. I can show you evidence, thousands of cases of people being harmed by these things, people being killed by these things, and again, all the abductions and disappearances. The amount of evidence in that regard is huge. Where is the evidence that these so-called space people are actually doing what they're telling these people they're doing? Well, I mean, we've had contactees from the 50s that stated that they had been taken to Saturn, into Venus, and they landed there and saw these lovely civilizations, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's all nice, but, you know, if the aliens have the power to make us blank our memories after being abducted, if they have the power to talk to us mentally, isn't it reasonable to assume they might have the power to make us believe something we wouldn't normally believe, or make us see things that aren't there, hallucination-wise, or, you know, having planted mental images or memories in our mind that aren't real? Hypnotists can do it here on Earth. A good hypnotist can hypnotize you under the power of suggestion and make you remember past lives you never had. A good hypnotist wouldn't do that. They would only try to get you to remember real things that might have happened to you. And some do that. But if we can do it, if we can plant false memories that when people wake up think are real, why in the heck wouldn't aliens be able to do it? And also, there is the Stockholm Syndrome. There has been a case like the Travis Walton one, where when he first talked about it, it wasn't a good thing. It was a bad thing. And then over the years, it's become a good thing. Now, maybe he knows something I don't know, and I don't want to denigrate his beliefs. But when he first started out, it didn't seem nearly so nice The Stockholm Syndrome is when people are kidnapped against their will. If they're with the aliens or whoever's doing it to them long enough, they begin to associate with them. And all of us try to make some sense out of what's happened to us and try to make it into something good rather than something bad. If you just miss being hit by a train, you think, oh, God was watching out for me. You don't think, geez, I almost got smashed and flattened on a railroad track. You tend to look at the better side of things. So unless they can show me hard evidence to support their theories or their beliefs, I don't see it because the evidence against them is so overwhelming.
What do you think of physicist Michio Kaku last month saying that if people are abducted, they should do something like steal a paperclip from the aliens or something and bring it back?
Well, some of them don't have to. We found implants in some people's, and that's probably better than paperclips. And one of these implants actually showed direct connection to live nervous tissue and nerve endings, as if it was bonding with the person's body. Now, what's that for? A lot of people think that they're tracking devices so the aliens can follow them and wherever they are, abduct them again to continue their experiments in an ongoing way. Or they could be something else entirely. They could be a way of taking over that person in some respect and basically turning him into a sleeper cell. I mean, when you think of all the people who claim abduction, if these are a sleeper cell waiting to be activated with their implants some way, somehow in the future, you're talking an army of over 1 million. Now, that's one heck of a sleeper cell group to have in any country.
And that kind of goes along the lines, at least in my head, of you mentioned all of these people disappearing. Where are they disappearing from? And has anybody ever kind of correlated the idea of UFO sightings or UFO reports around the areas where these people disappeared?
Yes. In some cases, there have been exactly that sort of thing. Also in the case of deaths. Primarily, the people who have disappeared in America, around 900,000, some say closer to 1 million people disappear every year. Of those people, if you take out one by one the different groups, such as people who were kidnapped, people who were murdered and buried secretly, people who just wanted to start a new life under a new name, parents who stole the children from the other parent, that sort of thing. If you take all those out, according to the FBI, you have about 60,000 people absolutely unaccounted for who disappear permanently. And those aren't the ones that are murdered or kidnapped or hijacked or whatever. They're just another group entirely that we can't account for. David Paulides, in his Missing 411 books, talks about the missing in our national and state parks. Same problem. We're not the only ones. Australia estimates that they lose about 28,000 to 30,000 people permanently every year in a country with a fraction of our population. In Alaska alone, over like a 12-year period, almost 7% of their population just disappeared permanently. So much so that it's now referred to as the Alaskan Triangle. We have another one around New Hampshire and Vermont called the Bennington Triangle. But these things are occurring all over the world. Now, some countries don't keep records of it. They're third world countries. They don't bother. They don't have the money or whatever. So, but if you counted up all the people from all the country that go disappear permanently every year, you're talking hundreds of thousands, perhaps over 1 million. Now, what's happening to these people? They're not being murdered. They're not being abducted. They're not being kidnapped. They're not in the groups that just want to start a new life. So what is happening to them, and why aren't we ever seeing them again, ever?
That's scary. Just to think that...
Yes, it is. It happens all over the place. Your daughter could be walking to the local convenience store to get a candy bar or a Coke or a Dicey or whatever and simply never come home. And by the way, that happens all the time. Someone goes out for a pack of cigarettes and it disappears. They never come home. That sort of thing.
Isn't there a somewhat famous case, I want to say back in the late 1800s, where a child was, I believe, walking from the house out to like a wood pile, and his footprints just stopped and he was gone and never seen again?
Right. It was a case here in North America. It was a farm, and the boy was sent out to get a bucket of water from the well. It had been snowing. His tracks are quite clear. They head towards the well. They stop abruptly. There's no markings around him whatsoever. The parents said it was as if he was lifted up from the spot. And that's an actual real case. There are other cases. There's the case of a man who bet his friends that he could run a certain distance in a certain amount of time, and this was in the 1700s, I believe. The friends didn't believe him, so they called him on his bluff. They had a bet on it, and they followed right behind him in a horse and cart, watching him the whole way because they were afraid he'd cheat and take some kind of shortcut. He apparently fell forward, cried out, and disappeared right in front of their eyes. This is a famous case. There are hundreds of these cases, and they go back even to ancient Roman and Greek times. The Romans and Greek talk about disappearances of famous generals and that sort of thing, never to be seen again, never find their bodies.
That is very, very frightening, just to think about the idea of entirely disappearing, regardless of whether it's through earthly means or maybe being abducted by an alien is a little bit more scary, I guess. Probably a little bit.
Well, the abducted ones are the lucky ones because they come back. But others disappear permanently, apparently. And are the aliens doing it? My guess is they're at least responsible for a great deal of it. Then, of course, you get the occasional one that is dropped back on Earth in horrible condition. There was a case in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in the late 80s. It didn't become known to the general public until the early 90s when the coroner's report from Sao Paulo, Brazil was leaked and was put on the internet along with the original coroner's photographs to back it up. And the coroner has not denied that this happened. In fact, just the opposite. What they found was a man's body on the edge of a reservoir not far from the city of Sao Paulo. His eyes had been cored out. His jaw had been fractured and a piece of it removed. His rectum had been excised. His testicles had been removed. There were small pinholes under his armpits and in his stomach. And apparently from these, internal organs had been sucked out of him through those tiny apertures. There was no sign of blood in the body or anywhere around it. It was as if it had been drained out, and the wounds looked as if they had been cauterized. Now, this is exactly what we've been finding in hundreds and hundreds of cases of mutilated cattle and sheep and other bovine creatures on farms around the world. This man was treated the same way. Now, the worst part of this is that they did an autopsy in his brain, and it showed the type of trauma that results to the brain when someone goes through extreme torture and pain without anesthetic. They found no traces of anesthetics in the body. There was no type of paralysis to him, and the coroner could only assume that whatever was done to him while he was alive and without any benefit of anesthetics. He literally died of horror and terror and pain.
If these alien races... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so much for our space brothers being good friends to us. Now, some people claim that there is more than one race, and that's entirely possible. I mean, there's enough different types of ships floating around, the triangles, the saucers, the cylinders, the tic-tacs, whatever, so that could be true. And they say that, well, some of them are our space brothers, that they would not harm us, but they have, like with Star Trek, a non-interference pact where they just simply don't want to disturb our evolution and cultural evolution, our civilization. Well, how good a space brothers are they if they stand by while all the others are kidnapping us, murdering us, mutilating us, torturing us, and then dumping us back on Earth, either with or without implants and alive or not? If you're just standing back and watching this happening and allowing everyone else to interfere in our culture, what makes you any better? Then some others say, well, maybe they're so advanced they see us as ants. Well, I don't know how advanced humans are, but I don't try to step on ants on purpose as an adult. As a child, I was pretty darn cruel. I would stomp on anthills. I used a magnifying glass to burn a few. I know it's terrible, but I did. Kids are cruel. But as an adult, I wouldn't think to do that. My motto now is more like live and let live. So if I can be that advanced from a child to an adult, why would a more advanced race be even more moral than we are? They don't seem to be. They're either amoral or they're immoral. And either way, if we are the ants and they're not going to watch out for us, then we have to watch out for ourselves. We have to take whatever measures we can to protect ourselves.
Well, if they're more advanced, what would be the purpose of even returning the body? I mean, they could simply abduct somebody, do whatever they're going to do, cut out whatever they're going to cut out, and eliminate the body. What's the reasoning or purpose for returning the bodies? In both some of these human abductions and even the animal mutilations?
Well, because they simply don't care. Why would you waste energy cremating the bodies when all you have to do is toss them out a trap door? Just dump them. What do our butchers do? They carve up an animal, and the other parts that they don't use, they simply throw out. It would seem the aliens are doing exactly the same thing with us and with our animals. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any photographs of mutilated cattle and such, but they're pretty awful.
Yeah, but like the butcher, when he's done with carving up the meat that he's going to carve up, he throws it into the trash and it's disposed of. He doesn't throw it out the back door and let it get picked on or found or anything like that. Why wouldn't the aliens have some form of disposal method with the rest of their trash? They certainly have to be generating some form of trash on these craft.
Probably. And they probably just dump them wherever they happen to be. You're talking about butchers. Let's switch it to ocean liners. Ocean liners are the biggest polluters of our oceans. They dump all their garbage and human waste right into the ocean. And that's becoming a real problem, but they're doing it anyway. They're outside the law because they're in international waters. They do it all the time. Well, these things are in space. They probably don't give a fig about what we think about it. Airplanes do the same thing. Blue ice, which is from toilets on planes, has crashed through people's roofs and hit people's cars. So if we can do it, why wouldn't they do it? In fact, teenagers and lots of people throw stuff out of their car. That's why we have anti-littering laws. We have it here in North Carolina. It's a $1,000 fine, but people still litter.
Well, you got me there, and that makes sense. As a UFO investigator, what was the strangest but yet believable case that you were able to investigate?
Gee, that's a hard one to answer. Most of the ones that I've dealt with were pretty mundane. It's someone has a sighting, they call us, they will show us photographs. We go out to the site, we interviewed them, we then tour the site, we look for any physical evidence we can, anything that might show it. We turn the photographs into a photographic analyst so they can determine whether it's real or not. And in most of the cases that I had, some of them seemed to show that the photographs were real and they had caught something really bizarre. That is probably as close as I can get to saying an unusual case, because the truth of the matter is I've never been abducted, although my brother claims missing time, and that's what kind of got me into all this to begin with. So basically, I go by the cases of other people who've reported. There's a case where a man was dumped on I believe it was a slag heap in England, a pile of coal or something like that, and the coroner's report said it looked as if he'd been dropped from a great height, but there had been no in the area, and he had been gone for a while, several days. How he got there, nobody knows. At the same time, some sheep in the area were found mutilated, so who knows? These cases are hard to quantify. The most famous are like the Dyatlov Pass or something like that. Those are truly horrendous, and we have a lot of evidence about those. So I'm not lucky enough to have been involved in one of those cases, but I have certainly, compiled them all and put them in my books.
Last week we had William Pullen on. He's a UFO historian, and we got into a bit of a discussion on evidence and how photographs and videos, we kind of, as a community, go back and forth. And we used to talk about how if there was more photographic evidence, we would be able to believe this more. And then we've kind of shifted now to there's so much fakery out there that you can't believe necessarily what you see. What do you think about somebody who has a photograph? I mean, what's their next step, or how do you rule out the idea of it being a fake?
We actually have it analyzed in MUFON anyway. We take it to a professional photographic analyst, and they determine if it looks as if it's been in any way altered. And it's pretty easy to do when you get down to the pixel level. Even I've done it. So you can pretty much rule out fakes. And yes, you're right. There are absolutely a lot of fakes and a lot of problems with that, more so as our photographic capabilities and software become more and more advanced. But by the same token, we're getting more advanced capability of enhancing things, including the military. And we're finding more and more out about the genuine UFOs that have been spotted and photographed, like near the the International Space Station.
You know, the space station has a history of losing the feed at key times. Do you think that's directly related to what's in the field of view of those cameras?
Well, absolutely. Just this year, there was a triangle reported right near it. There's video of it. You can see it on the internet. It's clearly there. And they tried to claim that it was a city back on Earth, and then they showed a picture of the city they thought it was. Well, it looks nothing like the UFO. It's not even triangular in shape. It's actually more of a square. And it also is an area of Russian Siberia where there is no city there. So it wasn't that. But this is how NASA obfuscates things. And also, I actually saw a video of a commander of a shuttle in Earth orbit quite a while back, a number of years ago. And she's talking, and at one point she's looking out the window. She says, "There's that alien spacecraft again." Then all of a sudden the sound stops. She's still there. She's still floating around, still talking. You see her mouth moving. No sound. It had switched to an audio encrypted channel.
Very similar to what happened on the moon during the moon landing.
And other multiple times on the space station as well. The feed with that triangle was cut off almost immediately. That's what they do. And then you get that blue screen.
But if there are so many things floating out there, or let's say flying out there, why do they even have the feeds on the space station anyway?
Well, because most of the time people don't see it. I mean, most of the time it's not there. These are intrusions. And also, if they didn't have it, there'd be awful lot of questions as to why, because right from the start, we have filmed everything about space, including the Apollo 11 mission. I sat up all night and watched it as a kid. So, yeah, they have a long history of televising. If they suddenly stop televising, that would raise alarm flags, too.
I understand that. That makes sense. Do you think that anybody in the government is working with the aliens?
I think it's a distinct possibility. There is some film footage of Edwards Air Force Base with a UFO there, and there are people who have reported on it. There are other people who have reported on it. So, yeah, I think our government's involved in it somehow, to some degree, and to maybe a great extent.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so many different stories out there.
Well, and these aren't by disreputable people. We're talking about astronauts stating it, like Edgar Mitchell, and we've had other people within NASA itself talking about it, and we've had outsiders who have been involved with NASA talking about it. We have government officials, not only of our country, but of Canada and Great Britain, who have talked about it. So even people in the Ministry of Defense, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point.
I think you're right. I can understand that. Rob, we're going to step out for a quick break, and we will be right back on
Space Travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, CHIVE Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com. Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Beamer, and thank you for sticking around with us. Don't forget, if you've missed part of the show, you can check out our archives for free. They're always free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the vault, and joining the Space Travelers Club, and so much more. We are talking tonight with Rob Shelsky, an author, researcher, world traveler, and we've bounced around from topic to topic. But one thing, Rob, I'd like to dig a little deeper in is time travel, because you and I have talked before, but we've never really had the opportunity to talk about time travel. And that's one of those things that I think fascinates and confuses a lot of people.
Yeah, it does, and for a lot of reasons, because people get a lot of conflicting information about time travel. A lot of physicists say it's impossible. That was not Einstein, however. He said it was possible in the sense that it is allowed for in his theories of special and general relativity. So I'm going to go with Einstein on that one, I'm afraid, over any other physicist. And now lately, scientists are talking about the idea that they can come up with a means of either warping us through space and or time without the benefit of negative energy needing to be used, which would make it a lot simpler. We're still a long ways from doing it, but the fact that we are now working out an actual feasible way to do it that doesn't involve crushing suns, for instance, or creating supermassive black holes shows the fact that we're getting closer and closer to maybe actually being able to do time travel. And there seems to be some evidence that may have already occurred.
I need a dictionary to understand some of what you just said.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Your knowledge scares and intimidates me a little bit because you know so much of the background and the facts and the evidence on some of these things. So who... I don't even know where to begin with this. I guess I should travel back in time and come up with some better questions.
Start again. Maybe you already have. Maybe this is the second or third attempt. Well, the idea of travel is a strange one, no doubt about it. Einstein believed that the future was just as fixed as the past, and therefore we don't have free will. I kind of disagree with that, because if you don't know what the future is and you're just making decisions randomly that ultimately end up at that future, it doesn't mean that you don't have free will. It just means that you're unaware of what the outcome's going to be. So my opinion is we do have free will, but it's confined within Einstein's laws. The future probably does exist. It's just as real and already there as the past is. Think of it as like a record, and we're a needle on that record. There's all these grooves. They're all equally valuable, but the needle is only playing on one particular groove at any given moment.
If we didn't have free will, wouldn't that basically sort of just make us like some form of consciousness popping in and out of the existence of these bodies just going through the motions?
Well, there are people that think our bodies exist like in a film frame from one to another, and our souls or our consciousness passes through them, and that gives us the illusion of time moving, and therefore it only moves forward for us. Now, that's just one theory. Another theory is that time is an actual integral part of space, and it's not a separate fourth dimension at all, but we have the space-time in which we exist, and this is malleable. It can be warped, it can be twisted, all sorts of things. It can be looped. So, and that was Einstein's theory, that space isn't just space, it's also time. It's space-time. This is a hard concept, I know. But we know for a fact that space can be warped. We have discovered gravity waves that distort space. And when they distort space, they're also distorting time. But we're not aware of it, of course, because it's such an incremental change. We don't see it. We know that we can travel into the future because our GPS proves it. Our atomic clocks and things aboard the satellites that do the GPS constantly are going out of sync with our clocks on Earth because they're further out of the gravity well and they're traveling faster. Therefore, time for them slows. Where on Earth, we're going at the regular rate. So we know that works. That part of time travel works. The big question is, can we go into the past? And now there seems to be an increasing amount of evidence that it might just be possible we can.
But if we were to go into the past, would we be able to change something?
Yes, absolutely. You could kill your own grandfather if you wanted to. The thing is, most physicists now, or at least quantum physicists, believe that whenever something is changed in the past, if you traveled in time, it instantly creates a new timeline. And that new timeline has the alterations in it. Not the old timeline you came from, but the new one. So when you went back to the future, you'd be back in our timeline where nothing changed. But there would be a different timeline that had branched off with those changes in it. Your timeline still has your grandfather in it. The parallel one wouldn't. And it wouldn't have you as a result.
So are we all living in different timelines then?
Well, if you believe in the Mandela effect, we might just be. Seems like people have a lot of memories of things that never happened. We have images of islands and things on the on globes from movies and television shows that never existed, at least not in our timeline. People seem to have an abundance of memories of things that they are sure happened, but haven't happened in our timeline. And this goes on and on and on. There are cases of people who insist that they have crossed over from another timeline, and there are people who claim that they went over to another timeline. And it's all started a long time ago, right around the 1900s. There were two women in England, both highly reputable, both with middle-class educations, both working at Oxford in a new college for women where women as yet couldn't get degrees. And they couldn't have any sign, any kind of sour note that might taint them and or their efforts. But they went to Versailles on a vacation, and they insist they saw and or were in the past at the time of Marie Antoinette. And they kept silent about it for 10 years. And it was only about 10 years later that they wrote the book. Now, their credentials are impeccable. And one was the principal of the college, and one was the vice principal. And the vice principal and principal really didn't get along. It wasn't as if they were in collusion. The vice principal had originally been hired to be the principal, but she wouldn't give up her position. So there was some animosity there. And this has been made into a movie, and there's an English version of it, I think refers to The Ghosts of Mrs. Morrison or something like that. And it really gripped the country of Great Britain and the United States at the time this book was published. And to their dying day, to their dying breath, they insisted it was true.
Well, you mentioned the Mandela effect just a moment ago, and we're going to dig deep into that, but I wanted to talk about time travel first, because in some ways they seem to be a little bit intertwined. And
they do, yeah.
It seems as though in some ways we can talk about time travel, but like you mentioned, these two women, is it possible or is there evidence to suggest that you can simply be walking along and all of a sudden you're in a different era or a different time?
Or flying along or driving along. It seems to not matter what you're doing. When it happens, it happens. And there are countless cases of that. There's just so many of them. People who college girls on a trip from their home college to another town for an event and coming home, and the road suddenly looks strange, the landscape looks strange, they felt lost. They pull into what looks like a tavern. They stop there, they roll down the window on the passenger side and call out to several men standing there with their backs to them. The men turn around, and the passenger woman says, drive, get us out of here now. So the other woman did, and they raced down the road, and what looked like an egg-shaped or teardrop-shaped car followed them at high speed. Then all of a sudden the car vanished, and all of a sudden the road went back to being tarmac rather than concrete, and they realized they were back on their old road again. And when the one woman driver asked the other passenger why she was screaming for them to drive like that, she said because they weren't human.
Now, was that an instance of them traveling back in time or into the future? Because we don't hear all that often, or at least I haven't heard all that often, of people traveling forward in the future and coming back. It always seems to be they traveled back in time and came forward again.
Yes, it does seem to be that way quite often. Either they went into a different timeline, or they could have gone into the far future of our own timeline. The question here is which was it? Well, we don't know. However, that road, that highway, had a reputation for a long time of being haunted prior to that happening. And these girls had been in a rush to get back to their college because they'd be in their dorms by, I think it was 10 o'clock, or they'd be locked out and in trouble. So they all claim that it was true. And we have countless cases of this. There's a case of a woman and some friends going up into Peru in the hills there, seeing an old stone cabin. There were lights on in it, torchlight, fire. So they walked up to see what it was all about. The one woman was in the doorway. She looked in. She saw people in period costume from either the 16th or 17th century. I'm not sure which. I don't remember. But she started to step into the room, and then her other friend pulled her back out at the last minute. The problem was half of her had gotten into the room and half of her hadn't. And the half that had gotten into the room was paralyzed. And it's a particular type of paralysis. She went to a doctor. It's documented. He said, yes, she's paralyzed. I don't know the cause. Don't know if it'll ever go away. As far as I know, it hasn't. And she insists that this happened to her. And then they went back, or her friends did, to find out more about it by going to the cabin. And it had long been abandoned. It was dusty with cobwebs, the whole thing. So did she step into the past? Is that what caused her paralysis? Again, we don't know. But this sort of thing is constant. I mean, it's not just a few oddball cases. It takes place in Argentina, in Brazil, in Peru, in England, in France, in the United States. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
How many of the people who disappear every year do you think could maybe have jumped timelines and just not returned to this one?
And that is a possibility. Since we don't have any hard facts as to where they're going, we have to assume that either they're being abducted by someone or they're accidentally slipping through time and or space-time to some other location. Quantum physics states that there is a small probability that you could, from one instant to the next, literally be somewhere else. You could literally find yourself in space without any protection, or on the other side of the universe. The possibility is extremely small, but it does exist. So it is possible that is what's happening with people. And the more people on the Earth, the more often we're going to see instances of this. However, in many of the cases, UFOs are often sighted in or around, or near proximity or in time-wise, not too far distant, like the day before, whatever. Excuse me, like with the Dyatlov Pass incident, orange spheres were spotted in the sky for several days in that immediate area before the events occurred. So we seem to have some indication that at least some of it is UFOs.
Okay, the UFOs are abducting people, but I was talking about the idea of people just hopping timelines and not coming back. Would that be under their control?
Right. And my point is, we're not sure. Yes, they could be. There seems to be a body of evidence that this is happening too, but we can't be sure if it's alien abductions entirely or partially, and or if it's people slipping into other timelines, the past or whatever. It could be both. There's absolutely no reason it couldn't be. UFOs themselves may be from another timeline. They may be from another dimension. It's tricky when you start using terms like dimension and timelines. I prefer timelines because if UFOs are from another timeline where whatever race inhabits that timeline on that Earth have developed that sort of capability, then they're switching timelines and not dimensions per se. Dimensions to me are something that are entirely different from our universe as we know it, and probably with an entirely different set of physics.
If we were to hop timelines, if one of us was just sitting here and all of a sudden moved to a different timeline, do you think we would have any control in coming back to our original timeline, or is it all just sort of a random effect?
Well, it might be a random effect. It might not be. Some timelines are very similar. In fact, quantum physicists say every time a particle, an atom splits or doesn't split, it creates a new timeline, one where it did and one where it didn't. This is where the idea of quantum immortality comes from. If you die in this universe, all your friends see you die, but because your lifeline stopped in this universe, it continues on uninterrupted in a parallel timeline, because always you have that binary thing of this happens or this happens. And every time this happens, the or has to happen as well. So in one timeline you die, and the other one you don't. So your continuity of existence would seem to be uninterrupted. Plus, if you slipped into a parallel timeline where the difference is only a couple of atoms that chose not to split, or particles, chose not to decay, you wouldn't notice any different. Your wife, your kids, your home, everything would look, you would have no idea that they weren't the same people. In fact, we may not be with the same people from one instant to the next. It may be constantly slipping back and forth through timelines.
Yeah, I know about not being with the, never mind. With all of the photographic evidence that has kind of come out lately regarding time travel, there have been pictures of one, I think, that is rather famous, is of the gentleman who's standing with the crowd, and he seems to be dressed differently than everybody else, or dressed differently than the accepted norm of the day. And there's the photograph of what appears to be an older woman holding a cell phone. And there have been some other ones. Are there any out there that you feel provide some real evidence, some real proof that the idea may be valid?
Well, again, you have to worry about hoaxes, but the one with the person standing at the opening of the bridge in Canada seems to be genuine, and he does. I've looked at that photo, and he does seem out of place. The woman that's holding the cell phone is in a Charlie Chaplin movie. What you probably saw was a still photo from that movie. I've seen the actual movie itself, and she is definitely walking along, and some claim it's a form of hearing aid that was available at that time in small numbers. The problem is, in the movie, she's clearly leaning, hunched over like anyone with a cell phone would, and she's talking. And there's nobody with her. There's a crowd moving around her, but she's not talking to them. She's carrying on a conversation with somebody. So what the heck is that? And we have other instances of what look like cell phones and cameras that couldn't exist at the time. I think it was, don't quote me on this one, but there was one where there was a boxing match. I think it was with Mike Tyson or someone, and there was a woman in the audience or someone in the audience that had a camera that simply didn't look like it could have existed at that time, and looked remarkably like an iPhone. So, I mean, this sort of thing goes on, and you have to be real careful to separate the wheat from the chaff. There's the case of Sid Hurwitz in Toronto, Canada, who supposedly invented a time machine. And there's some real evidence to support that he might have done just that. And because he was given an award by the Israeli government for outstanding achievement. And unlike what they usually did, they never said why. And yet the newspapers at the time, 2 different newspapers in Toronto, reported that he had created some sort of time machine that somehow stopped time, or at least it did for mechanical things. 2 police had gone to his house after he called them and said he had developed this. He turned it on. Their gun was frozen on the table where they had laid it, and they couldn't lift it. Their watches had stopped, and a certain amount of time passed. It was out of sync, I think, like 15 to 20 minutes when the machine was turned off. And he thought it would help them with a series of robberies that had been occurring at the time. And as they left, they said that thing could have really good military application. And then shortly after that, the Israelis had the raid on Entebbe in Uganda to save their people from the plane that had been forced to land there. And they were incredibly good at it. I mean, it was a flawless event. And then shortly after that, they awarded Sid Hurwitz the highest honor that a civilian could get from the Israeli government, and never said why. And if you don't believe me, go online and look up the photos of the award for yourself. So what was he given the award for? No one knows.
Well, how would a time machine invented in Toronto end up in Israeli hands and not Canadian hands or the U.S. government hands? Or
yeah, well, Sid Hurwitz was Canadian, and he was Jewish. He wasn't American. So it could easily have ended up in their hands. He did approach the Canadian government. And by the way, this man was no slouch. He was known as an incredible mechanic and repairman, that sort of thing. In fact, he got so good at what he did that he started 2 companies, one of which I believe is still in existence today, long after his death. And when he was fighting in the war, the Toronto city government requested that the Canadian government bring him home so that they could help, or he could help, with their new grid, electric grid that they're putting in the city. And they did that. So this guy was no nut. I mean, he was highly capable, highly intelligent, and he did approach at least the city government, police department in Toronto with his device. They didn't seem to be particularly interested, just thought it was a strange oddity. And then the next thing you know, he's getting an award from the Israeli government.
So militaries have the potential to have time travel then, possibly.
Well, some people claim that too. They claim that they were part of an experiment where they were sent back in time. The attorney, and I'm going to murder his last name because I never get it right, Basaggio, supposedly went back in time several times. He went back to the time and saw Lincoln give a speech. There's supposedly a photograph that has him in it. And yes, the one boy that he's supposed to have been at the time does look rather out of phase with those around him, the way he's dressed and his shoes. He talked about his shoes being oversized. They couldn't get the right size for him when they sent him back. And in this photograph, this kid does have really oversized shoes. So was he really sent back? Well, there's another attorney who said that he was involved in the program, and it is true. In fact, they even say that because it wasn't just a matter of time travel, but space-time travel, they were even sent to Mars. Is it true? Who knows? But there's more than one person claiming this is so.
There have been several quote-unquote time travelers that have come out on YouTube and different media outlets lately. Do you think any of them are being truthful or valid, or who is the most likely candidate in your eyes?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're asking specifically with regard to what.
Have you seen any of the YouTube videos or seen any of the reports of people who have come out probably in the last year claiming that they're time travelers?
Oh, yes, I have. And one of them has been thoroughly, I knew it was a hoax to begin with. There was one where there was a teenager and he was in like some basement room in some shack somewhere or some basement of some building in some city, and he's talking about the future, and he was saying President Trump was going to be reelected and all this stuff. And then I thought, this is utter garbage, because all these people always say stuff that can never be verified or backed up in any way. And it was the same with this teenager. And I think he was a teenager. He was very young. And he later admitted that it was a hoax, but that the channel on YouTube that he was on knew it and were perpetuating the hoax. And but he said that he'd had enough, that it was causing him problems because people had got to know who he was. So, but again, I think 90% of that or more is just hoax and people basically scamming the community. The thing with John Titor turns out to have been a hoax, and yet some people still insist it actually happened and that he was telling the truth. He was on the internet early on and claimed that he was from the future and had gone into the past and stopped off later in the early 2000s, I think it was, and he was saying things that would happen in the future. Well, none of what he said panned out.
Rob, I'm going to get you to hold on for 1 second there. We're going to step out for a quick break. This is Spaced Out Sundays, and we'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
John Resig here, founder of CHIVE Charities. And just like you, we have a penchant for the uncommon, the overlooked, and the off-the-cuff. CHIVE Charities operates a bit differently than most organizations. We listen to our recipients to find out exactly what they need, and then we give it to them. We provide people with rare medical conditions, veterans, and first responders with grant items that will make a direct impact on that person's life. We don't just forget about our recipients when the van or the wheelchair has been delivered, though. Our recipients are part of our CHIVE Charities family for life. By becoming a donor with us, you could be a part of that family too. And our listeners of Spaced Out Radio know that thinking differently can be a very good thing. To get to know some of our recipients and to support Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to CHIVEcharities.org and start making a real difference today.
If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you for sticking around with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, KDN-FM, KDN, I'm going to get this right one day. It's so much to memorize. We welcome back everybody on our terrestrial affiliates. KDNF, AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX 93.7 in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our brand new website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features. And I was going to change it to cornucopia, but somebody whispered something in my ear, and we're going to, we're going to leave it as plethora for now. But we have a plethora of features there for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the brand new Spaced Out Radio Vault, and reading up on the SOR Newswire. And there's so much more there. We welcome back Rob Shelsky. And before the break, we were talking about time travel. And when you talk about time travel, the next thing to kind of roll into is the Mandela effect. And this is one of those things that I used to be a non-believer about it, but Rob is the guy. He is the researcher and author that kind of changed my mind on it. And he's written a fabulous book about it. It's out now. I'd recommend you check Amazon or his website and get a copy of it because he explains it fantastically well. Rob, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to still be here.
So the Mandela effect, we were talking about time travel. And to some people, and I'm included, time travel and the Mandela effect are very intertwined because when you talk about hopping timelines or moving to a different timeline and things could be slightly different there, maybe not radically different, but slightly different there, that's where the Mandela effect kind of comes into play, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It also comes into play in a very large way with people's memories. And psychiatrists like to think of them as false memories, but even they say they cannot explain why so many people would have the same false memory, no matter what country they're from, civilization they're in, culture, or racial background, or whatever. So the question is not that they have false memories, because people probably do, but why with these particular memories do so many get it wrong in exactly the same way? Then, of course, there seems to be physical evidence to support the idea of the Mandela effect as well.
Now, the Mandela effect got its name probably from one of the most famous instances of it, the idea that so many people remember Nelson Mandela dying in jail, and then years later, he was elected president. So how did that come about? I mean, who first coined the term, and can you tell us a little bit about the original Nelson Mandela event?
No, I can't. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, actually.
Right, well, we'll just wrap this up early then.
It was Fiona Broom had a blog, and it was in 2013, and she noticed that when she spoke about Nelson Mandela, people had two distinct memories. So she sort of went with that and asked more people what they remembered. And it was surprised her how many people had two distinct, separate memories of what happened to him. One was that Nelson Mandela died in prison under the apartheid government, which by the way, is one way that I do remember it happening in the 80s. And the other one was that he went on to be president of South Africa and lived a long life and died as a hero of his people, which I also remember. So I have both memories embedded in my brain. I know which one seems to be the real one, and yet the other one seems just as valid to me. Well, this seems to be true for tens of thousands of other people. They either remember it one way or they remember the other. I'm one of the few that seem to remember it both ways.
I remember it sort of both ways, too. I mean, I have some other instances of false memories or wrong memories. But what's, besides the Nelson Mandela case, what are some of the more famous or more well-known instances of the Mandela effect?
Well, I could talk about the Berenstain Bears versus the Berenstein Bears, but everybody talks about that. There are quite a few others.
Before we move off of the Berenstein and Berenstein Bears, couldn't that have just been generated by misspellings in general communications, mislabeling of books? I mean, isn't it possible that that's one of those cases where it's just the fact that the spelling is, to some people, a little bit confusing or difficult?
Sure. Absolutely. It could be. It could be a false memory, except that there are copies of the book that are spelled both ways. Now, did the publisher make a mistake with some of their books? Were some of the early editions wrong? It's possible. It's conceivable. But the fact that people remember it both ways is real enough. The fact that there seems to be evidence for the book having been printed both ways and referred to even by the publisher in advertisements in the past and that sort of thing. So if it is the publisher that's behind all this, they must have been incredibly sloppy, and one would have thought at some point that the authors of the book would have mentioned it to them. I can't imagine some publisher getting the title of one of my books wrong repeatedly without me raising a hue and cry over it, I'll tell you.
What about Dave? Dave Scott, the weekday host, has a Ford key that is different from all the rest. Are you familiar with the Ford Mandela effect?
Absolutely. Ford claims that it always had that little curly Q on the crosshatch of the F in Ford, and that they've had it since, I think it was like 1912 or something like that. It was very early on in the 20th century. And they say that they only had it the one way, and yet time and again, people have discovered evidence of it not being that way. For instance, there was a medallion struck for a World's Expo or World's Fair, and it has the curly Q on the F, but there's also a real solid physical medallion that doesn't have it on it. And Ford insists they never struck two separate medallions for the Expo. There are cars that have been found in junkyards where on the front hood of the car, the Ford symbol has the curly Q, but the back of the car has the same symbol without the curly Q. These are hard physical pieces of evidence. And yet Ford is adamant that they always had it the same way, always. And why would they have two separate logos or emblems or whatever you want to call them on the same car? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So either Ford is lying, which I question them lying over something so trivial, or there actually are two different versions of the Ford insignia logo.
With the Ford logo, could that be a case where we've talked about people jumping from timelines? Can items or personal effects or material items jump from timeline to timeline? Could that be a factor in the Mandela effect?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the movie Dazed and Confused has a globe in the background in a schoolroom. It's a school globe. The movie was shot cheaply. It was about teenage angst, and two kids are spinning the globe and talking to each other. The globe means nothing in the movie. It's just a prop, basically, and on it, there's a large landmass just to the west of Australia that doesn't exist. Now, this is a real physical evidence. Anyone can look at the movie and see it. I believe it came out in like 1994. In that same decade, Friends had a globe in the background on a shelf in the living room area of their show, and I believe it was the episode Bracelet Buddies, the second season. And it shows an island to the southwest of Australia, not as big as in Dazed and Confused, but definitely there, and not Tasmania, because it also shows Tasmania. I found one by researching at long lengths, an episode in the fourth season of the I Dream of Jeannie, where there's a globe repeatedly seen in the episode, and it shows a landmass to the west of Australia. It shows a large, very large island off the southern tip, just slightly to the west of South America, and another large landmass that looks amazingly like High Brazil, only it's in Pacific, and it's in the Pacific right off the coast, or not right off the coast, but to the west of Central America. Now, this is not Hawaii. Hawaii couldn't possibly be this big. This is a landmass divided by a strait horizontally, and it's huge. It could almost be called a continent. It's smaller than Australia, but not a lot smaller. Now, where did these things come from? Time and again, you see this on maps and in globes and things like this. Why it appears in TV shows and movies that are decades apart. I mean, we're talking about the 60s and the 60s for I Dream of Jeannie, 90s for Friends, and also for Dazed and Confused, and other shows as well. Now, how is this possible? Are they making these globes wrong just for the heck of it? Why would any prop manager make artificial globes that are wrong? Why wouldn't you just call them buy one? I mean, and is it the same production company? Well, no, it's not. It's different production companies, different prop set people, and they're getting their props from different sources. So, again, it's almost inexplicable.
So there's 3 instances of 3 different globes, and all 3 globes have different land masses on them?
Yeah, always it seems around Australia for some reason, although they're different sizes and in slightly different positions, but also with the I Dream of Jeannie one, right there in the middle of the Pacific off of Central America, a large island, and these are not keys or logos. If you look at the image, and I posted it on YouTube on my channel, it shows the island off the tip of South America. It shows mountains and rivers and a harbor on it. This is no logo or a key. So what is it? Why is it there? Who would put that there, and why? You'd have to go to some trouble. And maps also seem to show this. Australia seems to have moved further north. It's now almost within eyesight of southern New Guinea. And I lived in Australia as a kid, and I assure you at the time, it was a long ways, or seemed a long ways from there. New Zealand seems to have switched positions, according to many people. It used to be roughly parallel to Australia. Now it's definitely to the southeast of Australia. And this goes on and on. Manchuria seems to have gotten bigger and smaller. China's gotten bigger and smaller. Thailand has changed shape some. People are reporting all sorts of incidents with regard to this. So what's going on? And also, in real life, islands are disappearing. The island of High Brazil was on maps for almost 400 years. Supposedly it was off the coast of Ireland, between Ireland and Greenland. And various maps and ship's captains spotted the island. Now it doesn't exist. Sandy Island in the South Pacific was on maps, again, spotted by several different ships of different nations, including the Dutch and the English. The captains noticed it. I believe even Captain Cook reported it. And not positive about that, but I think so. And all of a sudden, in the last few years, it's disappeared. Now, it was on a Google satellite map showing it, but it was pixelated out. It was black, but it was in the exact shape of the island as reported by these other people. Now it no longer appears on satellite maps at all, but you can get a copy of it off the internet that shows it. And not faked, it's a real thing. So what happened to Sandy Island? Numerous other islands in the Caribbean, in the South Pacific have come and gone. These off the coast of Japan, these islands were reported, seen by several ships at several different times. Even the flora and fauna was recorded that existed on these islands. The shape of the island, the topography, the geography of the islands was reported in detail, not just by one ship, but by different ships of different countries at different times. Now these islands no longer exist. They seem to have vanished. What the heck's going on there, I don't know.
Going back to the globes, and I know this would be difficult with the I Dream of Jeannie globe, but has anybody ever gone back and asked the prop masters or the set dressers if they remember anything surrounding the globe, whether they had discussed, oh, it's wrong, or did they even notice it at the time, or is this something that kind of appears in the background after the fact, that maybe it was a globe correct to our timeline at the time, but then it at some point seems to have switched in whether it be on videotape or on film. Has anybody ever gone back and asked about that?
Well, I've done as much research as I think one can do on it, and all I can find out is that it was different prop people, different productions at different times and in different locations, and also that the globes didn't necessarily seem to come from the same sources. The one globe is definitely a school globe, and that was in Dazed and Confused. The source of the one in I Dream of Jeannie, I have no idea. Most of the people are either dead or so old that they don't remember, and I couldn't find them or contact them. And as for the actors and actresses in the show, maybe Barbara Eden would know. She's a survivor of the show. Larry Hagman no longer is with us. But someone might want to contact her. Whether or not she'd respond, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to go about contacting her particularly. So I did the best I could with what I had, and I can't find that these are from the same sources, same companies. But I do think that they are probably from different timelines and that they were probably actual depictions of real globes in the real surface of the Earth for that particular timeline. And it looks like there's more than one timeline involved. Why land masses keep appearing around Australia, I don't know, but it's always to the west or southwest of Australia. But they're different sizes and shapes. I mean, one of them is 1/5 the size of Australia. And again, you have to wonder, if this was real, what happened to the people? What about people who had relatives there? I have relatives in Australia. Did I have relatives on that island that's now vanished, and I don't remember them? Again, this is what bothers me about the Mandela effect. They don't just disappear. They disappear from our memories. If you had a brother or sister there, or a cousin or a father or mother, you don't remember them anymore. They're not only gone, they're gone from your memory as if they never existed. And that's really horrible, to think that loved ones don't just die, but you still have the memories of them, but they just vanish from you completely.
Can we take a little comfort in thinking that maybe they exist in another timeline?
Well, I do. Yes, that's the only thing I can hope, is that if there are multiple timelines, then we probably have switched timelines, and they didn't, and they're still existing in those places and those timelines. Don't know if it's true or not, but it's a comforting thought.
You mentioned the land masses that seem to consistently surround Australia. Hasn't there been some research done, I want to say, in the last couple of years where they believe there could possibly be an entire continent that's been undiscovered and underwater somewhere west of Australia?
Yes, and also one to the east, Zealandia, which New Zealand is a part of. The rest of it's submerged. And also in the west, but it's more over into the Indian Ocean. And it looks like it was an ancient landmass that's now drowned. But if it went down millions, perhaps even 1 billion years ago. I mean, it's a long, long time that it's gone. Tectonic plate, continental shift, that sort of thing. So, but it's not close enough to Australia to have accounted for. Oh, and by the way, one other interesting fact, the missing plane that went down in that area went down right over where that island would have been.
The Malaysia plane?
Yes, the Malaysian airline, flight M370 or whatever it was, it disappeared apparently right over that area.
Fascinating. That's a little spooky.
Yeah, and now there have been some claims that pieces of it were found on the beaches of Madagascar, like 2 pieces, which they say came from it. But I've never seen any follow-up on that, and I can't find any more follow-up on it. It's almost like it was stated, and then that was the end of it. And that amazes me, because you're talking about a few hundred people going down on that thing, and you would have thought that if they had found pieces, it'd make much more news, and there would be a lot of follow-up in the search because they had found physical evidence of some sort.
What do you think the likelihood that maybe that entire plane hopped into a different timeline mid-flight is?
It does make you wonder. Now, again, were those pieces genuine? Was that report genuine? Was it fallacious? I don't know. But it is an interesting thought that they may have actually switched timelines. So who knows? Or maybe they just crashed into the ocean, or maybe they were attacked by something or someone in the air and crashed. Again, we just don't know. That's the problem with mysteries, is they're a mystery.
not to get too far off the Mandela effect here for a second, but what do you think the likelihood or the possibility of that plane having been abducted by a UFO of some sort is? I mean, is that in the realm of possibility?
Well, it absolutely is, because apparently something very much like that happened to an American military jet back in, I think it was 1952. I might have the year wrong. It was definitely the 50s. But a Lieutenant Felix Moncla and his co-pilot or navigator, whatever the heck he was, they saw a UFO on radar over the Great Lakes. They were sent to intercept it on the radar. It showed them approaching the UFO. They were in contact with the control tower all that time. Then suddenly that cut off, and the two objects seemed to merge. And then there was just the one object, and it continued north into Canada, finally off of radar. They said that, maybe it was a Canadian airline or a plane of some sort, military, and that they had collided with it. Well, Canada denies anything of the sort. Furthermore, there has never been a piece of that plane or any bodies found from it in all this time. The military did not even declare them dead for about 3 months, and they finally put up a memorial, which is extremely unusual because they usually do it right away. So it was as if they were waiting for them to turn up again. We don't know what happened to that plane, but it just vanished off radar when it intercepted a UFO. And there doesn't seem to be any debris to show that it was shot down or damaged or collided. So what happened to the plane? What happened to the men? We've never seen or heard of them again. More disappeared.
Everything is just gone from that incident. There's no, there's no evidence.
In all these decades, we've never found a piece of debris or any sign of a body or anything at all. One would have thought some of the debris might have floated to a nearby shore.
Yeah, I would think that even after this amount of time, something, if the plane crashed, there should be some form of evidence somewhere to indicate even the idea of a crash or something. It seems like it would be almost impossible to just completely disappear.
Exactly, and yet that seems to be exactly what it did, because it simply vanished from radar and only the one object was seen, and it looked as if it had got joined with the object on radar. So, and that's just one instance. There are others.
Was that object tracked, or did it land, or did it just disappear off of radar too?
It disappeared. No, it didn't disappear off radar. It simply moved off of radar and went out of range. Okay,
so, but nobody knows if that was another plane or anything. It was just simply a blip on the radar, and then this other plane disappears.
Yep, when it merged with it. Yep.
That is a little frightening. Rob, we're going to take a break here in a few seconds, and when we come back, I want to have a little bit of fun with the Mandela effect, because there's some movies and some colors and all kinds of things that people seem to remember right, wrong, differently, in so many different ways. So, Rob, we're going to step out here for a second, and we will be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. We live in a world of mystery and uncertainty, which you guys know better than anyone. Sometimes you just need to be brought back down to earth for a while. One of the best ways to stay grounded is to help out with your fellow earthlings, and there's no more rewarding way to do that than to give through CHIVE Charities. Unlike many organizations, we don't necessarily aim to save the world, cure disease, or change the course of history. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. CHIVE Charities is nothing without our donors, an amazing group of underdogs helping underdogs. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens, or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and I thank you for being with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault, joining the Space Travelers Club, and so much more. We're going to finish up the show here with Rob Shelsky, and we've been talking the last half hour of the Mandela effect, and we're going to keep going with that because, Rob, I'm a big movie fan, and I have a memory of a movie that does not exist, and apparently a lot of other people have the same memory. Is it a Sinbad movie, I believe?
There is the Sinbad movie. There are other movies as well, including Star Wars. And, well, actually, there's quite a few movies. Walt Disney movies, for instance. A lot of us remember Sinbad starring in Sinbad, and apparently he didn't. And yet we all have memories of it. Walt Disney's movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the original one from the late 40s. Do you remember the magic phrase she used to say when she was looking in the mirror to find out who's the fairest in the land?
Isn't it mirror, mirror on the wall? Who's the fairest of them all?
Fairest of all? Right, yeah. Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? That's how everybody remembers it, me included, and you too, apparently. But it's not. It's magic mirror on the wall. And nobody remembers it that way. We all remember this mirror, mirror on the wall. And it's incredibly difficult to believe. And yet if you look at the original movie, which I did just to confirm it, it does say magic mirror. Now, why do all of us remember it the other way?
That's why you're here, because I want to ask you that.
I think it's due to something to do with quantum computers. They came online right around 2010, 2011, and by 2013, Fiona Broome is talking about the Mandela effect, and it only seems to be getting more and more so. Literally, a few thousand cases of it have already been seen. Monopoly game, the funny man in the top hat. Most people remember as having a monocle. Now he doesn't, and they say he never did. And yet all of us remember him as having a monocle. Jiffy peanut butter doesn't exist. It's Jif. And yet most of us remember Jiffy peanut butter. Hello, Clarice from the movie Hannibal. He never says that. It's just everyone remembers him saying it in like this deep tone, hello, Clarice. But he doesn't say it. Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. Nope. It's now life was like a box of chocolates, which makes no sense to me. Because if life was like a chocolate box, it means it no longer is, so why is he even bringing it up? This goes on, movie after movie. Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. Never said it. Even the actor who played Darth Vader in 2 different interviews says the line, and he says, Luke, I am your father. It's not in the movie. It's, no, I am your father, which nobody seems to remember. C-3PO had a silver leg. But even the cameraman in the original movie says, no, he didn't. Because if he did, I would have had to adjust the lighting to show the silver leg. And there was no silver leg, so I did not do that. I remember that distinctly. And yet now if you look, he has a silver leg. In Moonraker, the James Bond movie, the big hulking guy with his metal teeth smiles at a young woman with pigtails and glasses who's quite plain. And this is the moment when the romance has to bloom. So he smiles and reveals his teeth, afraid she's going to hate him because of the way he looks. Instead, she smiles back and shows braces, a whole mouthful of metalwork. And then you see these little hearts, because they're in love. They have something in common. Now in the movie, she doesn't have them. He smiles at her, and she smiles back, and instantly they're in love. And there's no real reason because there was no bonding item in that scene now to make them feel that way about each other. So how do we explain all of these things?
Why do you think it's so prevalently found? Is prevalently a word? Well, it is now. Why do you think these things are so found so often in films? I mean, every film that you've mentioned, I remember it the wrong way. Now, either all of us or many of us have horrible memories or something happened. somewhere along the line.
Well,
seems...
again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, psychiatrists say that it is false memories, and it could well be. But again, if it is false memories, why are we all getting it wrong the same way? And we're all getting it wrong the same way regardless of what country we live in or whatever. That's the weird part. And also, how does it account for all the physical manifestations of the Mandela effect, as with the Ford medallion, Kit Kat bars, they used to have a hyphen, now it doesn't. I mean, this stuff goes on and on forever. Nestle's, N-E-S-T-L-E-S, makes the very best chocolate. I remember that commercial. Now it's Nestle, no S on it. So it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't work well. N-E-S-T-L-E makes the best chocolate. It doesn't even rhyme. It's N-E-S-T-L-E-S makes the very best chocolate. Without that S, it doesn't work. And yet they insist that's the way it is. So who knows?
Is our timeline that we're all on together right now maybe the one where the Mandela effect just kind of falls into it? Because it's really hard to wrap my head around the idea that all of us are remembering things wrongly. I can see it with one or two different things. And I can even explain some of this, like the C-3PO leg. I've heard some explanations on that from people who worked on the film that I can kind of buy. And the general idea is C-3PO always had the silver leg. You didn't see it because most of the film was taking place on sand, and it was reflecting that black or that sand brown kind of color, and you didn't notice it, and it came through more with the digital remastering. With that one, I can kind of buy that. But so many of these other things, there are just too many people remembering too many things wrongly for it to be ignored.
Given the C-3PO one, I would take issue with that explanation. Skeptics can come up with an explanation for everything. And yes, a lot of the movie was filmed on the sand of Tatooine, but do remember it was also filmed on board of a lot of spaceships too. And do remember that the cameraman himself said he needed to adjust the lighting accordingly, but because there was no silver leg, he didn't have to. Now, who's telling the truth and who isn't here? You have conflicting stories about that. You've heard of the Musketeers bar, right?
The Three Musketeers bar.
Right. Now, the problem with that is it used to supposedly be 3 different flavors, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And now it isn't. And they claim it never was. And yet, 1933 Notice of Judgment from the Acting Secretary of Culture described the shipment of treats that they seized as the strawberry and vanilla bars having no recognizable flavor of strawberry or vanilla, and the strawberry bars were also artificially colored. Now, that's a matter of written record, and yet the company insists it never had that. And yet it would make sense. The Three Musketeers would be the 3 flavors, strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate. So how do we account for that?
I know that was a long time ago, but as soon as you mention that, I remember seeing or biting into, I don't remember the flavor, but I can remember a pinkish red filled Three Musketeers bar.
Right.
And I don't know if it was a holiday issue or a Halloween issue or something, but I have to admit, that's a new one on me, and I remember it.
Well, again, I mean, we all remember a lot of these things. I remember Kit Kat with a hyphen. Now it doesn't have a hyphen. It's the same with one item after another. I mean, actually, the number of Mandela effects is rising at a phenomenal rate because people keep reporting these things, and it just goes again on and on. And we can't figure out how we can get it wrong so often. And when people get it wrong, they get it wrong with the same way. People remember Kit Kat as being hyphenated or not hyphenated, and no other way. It's always down to those two things. And it always seems to be an either-or, which coincides perfectly with quantum physics, which says that every time there's an either-or situation, both outcomes have to be equally valid. So that we live in a world of probabilities, probability waves. And when these probability waves collapse, you have a certain timeline. But according to the laws of probability, all probabilities have to be manifested. All outcomes are equally valid. Therefore, you have all these timelines that are different with the either-or situation, with a hyphen, without a hyphen for Kit Kat, or whatever.
We talked a little bit about this during one of the breaks, and I want to bring this up and mention it for the audience. I don't go out of my way to look for the Mandela effect, but I've kind of been noticing like more instances of it lately. And you just mentioned that people are bringing these forward more and more. Is there a rise or a growth in not reporting them or discovering them, but a rise in the amount of Mandela effect experiences or objects or things that is kind of going on right now?
Well, I think people are more aware of it, and people are reporting it more, and that's really the only way we can discern if it is increasing in number. One that bothers the heck out of me that I only recently became aware of about a year or so ago is Looney Tunes. Now, I grew up watching Looney Tunes, and they were great cartoons, and the spelling is wrong now. Now it's Looney Tunes, tunes as in music, not tunes as in cartoons. But these weren't necessarily musical items. Some of the cartoons did have music in them. Some did not. But they were all cartoons. So Looney Tunes, T-O-O-N-S, makes far more sense to me, and it is how I remember it rather than Looney Tunes. It wasn't crazy music. It was crazy cartoons, Looney Tunes. And so this sort of thing does seem to be coming out more. Is it just because more people are remembering things and reporting it, or is it because they're actually on the rise? That we don't know. There's simply no way to know that. But it could be that they are on the rise because our timelines are merging and separating more often. And that could be a result of quantum computing, because there's a definite correlation between the time that the first primitive quantum computers came online in about 2010, 2011, and then in 2013, the first Mandela effects were being reported.
Is it possible we're all living in the Matrix then?
That's another solution, too. And if that's so, then someone's messing with the matrix. They're altering things in it. And as with any program, if you make an alteration early on in the program, it can cause glitches later on in the program in unforeseen ways, as any gamer will tell you when it comes to video games. They correct one glitch, and then the result is glitches in other areas of the program further later in the program. So yes, that could be true. And it also could be that that's why some of us are remembering things differently. Or it could be that because we're mixing and merging timelines, some of us are from separate timelines that are now in this one, or vice versa. Maybe this wasn't your original timeline. Maybe your timeline is where you remember these things that way because they were that way. But the quantum computers are supposedly accessing parallel timelines with other quantum computers in them, according to the founder of D-Wave, one of the two founders of D-Wave quantum computing. And as he states in a seminar that's on YouTube, anyone can watch it, he says it accesses quantum computers in adjacent timelines. Well, what is the repercussions of doing that? Well, what are the side effects? If we're accessing other timelines in quantum computing, is one of the side effects that we're merging and separating timelines?
I don't even know where to go with that. That's a frightening thought.
Well, the good news is there's another timeline where you did know where to go with it, according to the laws of probability.
I would like to just hop over to that one then.
Yeah, we have the answers, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I want to touch on the Looney Tunes one for a second, because we've only got about 10 minutes left. And that is one of those things that I don't know when I first noticed it, but it was rather recently. And you're right. The idea of Looney Tunes, as in Tunes, makes no sense. Is there any evidence? Is there any evidence anywhere that shows that it was Tunes, Toons?
I haven't come across it. And they insist it was always that way, Tunes. Yet many, many people remember it as being with the Toons. Is there actual evidence for it? Well, you can always find something on the internet, but whether or not it's real or hoaxed, who knows? I've come across so many hoaxes. So unless someone actually shows me a cartoon live from that era that has Looney Tunes with a T-O-O-N-S in it, I don't buy it. But I can't help but think that it had to have been Looney Tunes. In some of these cases, it just doesn't make sense for it to be T-U-N-E-S. I mean, it wasn't music. It wasn't loony or crazy music. It was crazy cartoons, and they were crazy. So why would it be T-U-N-E-S? That just doesn't ring true to me. And worse, it doesn't even make sense. It's like life is like a box of chocolates. That makes sense. Life was like a box of chocolates. It doesn't make sense. If it was and isn't anymore, then why bother even bringing the subject up? That's like saying life was like a bowl of cherries, but was like a bowl of cherries, but is not anymore. So why would you even mention it? Some of these things just don't make sense the new way. I call them the new way because for me they're different from the way I remember it.
You know, it just popped into my head. The strange thing, or something that makes it even stranger, calling them Looney Tunes, T-U-N-E-S, is that if you go back and listen to them, I believe that most of the music was canned music, meaning it was basically just stock music that they used over and over for the same series of cartoons. So you might hear the same theme in the background of the cartoon 20, 30 times over the course of its run, where they weren't making or creating new music. So they had very few songs in reality. So why would they use T-U-N-E-S at all? The music was such a background to it.
Right, exactly. There were exceptions, of course. There was the one with Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd where they did the Barber of Seville and Carmen, basically, and they were using music from both of the operas for that. I can still remember the lyrics to it. So that one was definitely musical in nature, and it was predominantly the music that was making the cartoon, although the cartoon was quite funny as well. But yes, a lot of it was stock. A lot of it was used over and over. It was just cheaper to do it that way.
Before we wrap this up, I want you to, if you would, explain maybe a little bit about how we can rationalize having two different memories, because I have a color that I know is two different colors, and apparently a lot of other people remember it this way too.
And what is that color?
Well, it's not fuchsia, chartreuse. I remember it as sort of a neon greenish yellow, but at the same time, I remember it as sort of a burgundy kind of color, or a maroon. And I would say that was in the 70s, and somewhere around the early 80s, this sort of neon greenish yellow color became chartreuse.
Yeah, and that's true of a lot of people. I remember chartreuse as being lime green, but oh gosh, so many people, including one of my roommates, remembered, and I even put his name in the book for that reason, with his permission. You ask people at random, what color is chartreuse? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say it's reddish purple, reddish maroon, or a pinkish shade. It's always something to do with red and that kind of a darker shade, or at least that kind of coloration. And you'd think that sometimes, just out of the clear blue, someone would say orange, yellow, blue, but they don't. 99 times out of 100, you will get the odd one that actually picks another color. But the vast, vast majority of people, and I did this for my own research, say it's reddish maroon, reddish purple, or some kind of pinkish brown shade.
When do you think the switch kind of happened?
I think it happened when quantum computers came online. Some people think it's CERN. I don't think so. CERN isn't doing anything that nature itself isn't doing in the universe. It smashes atoms together pretty darn well, and we get cosmic rays from it, for instance. No, this is something to do with quantum computers based on the evidence that I have now. Is it absolute? No, but I think it's the greatest probability that quantum computers are screwing up our timelines.
Rob, that is a frightening thought to end the show on, but we're just about out of time. Can you take a minute or two and tell people where they can find you and find your books and find your work?
Yeah, sure. They can find my books on robshelsky.blogspot.com. But my advice would be to either use Bing and search me, or Google and search me. It all comes up, including all these radio shows like with you guys, and or go to Amazon, and you can get the print books through the Kindle version, and or go through the publishers like Simon & Schuster or Permuted Press, or even Smashwords, which has all the other ebook versions of it, including the Kindle version. So there's lots of ways they can find me.
Well, Rob, I want to say thank you so much. I know this was a little bit short notice, but I want to extend a ton of gratitude for you coming on and talking to us about so many different fabulous topics. I hope I get the chance. I hope I get the chance to talk to you again.
Oh, I hope so too, because I do enjoy talking with you. You ask the right questions in the sense that you sound very knowledgeable about it, and you're very incisive. And I really enjoy that in a host, because if you don't have a host that asks the right questions or in the right way, then it's kind of a muddle. And that's been my experience. So, yeah, I'm happy to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much. We've got Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking out in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. A special thank you to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, at work, and in our chat room, wherever else you may be. Remember, this show is copywritten by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to get this spaceship back home. Good night.